The sports media landscape is changing as one of its OG hot takers has decided to bow out. We think your man's Skip Bayless, who, if you're an OG, you remember that story he had about Troy Aikman, right? You remember that story about Troy Aikman. Basically, he tried to insinuate that Troy Aikman's favorite month was June. If you know, you know. But Skip Bayless has decided to step away. Let's get right into the screen. The Fall of the Network adamantly is saying out loud with their chest that they are not interested in bringing back Skip Bayless to run it back one last time with Stephen A. Smith. And the one thing to take away from this is that everyone has this run. And while you can say that Skip Bayless is personally responsible for rebirthing Stephen A. and Shannon Sharpe's careers, the fact of the matter is that he himself could not save himself. He tried to do the rebound with the whole Drip Bayless thing where he was 70 plus years old, rocking Jordan 1s, rocking breads, thinking that he was him, and it just came across wrong. He tried it. I will say this, for someone who is 72, 73 years old and in a society that caters to, teenagers and millennials and Gen Zers and whatever other, additives you want to put on it, he tried to run with y'all. He tried to cater to y'all. He tried to give y'all the takes that he felt would blow up y'all group chats. And while he had the steam, maybe even 5 years ago, and for sure 10 to 15 years ago, he no longer has that steam in 2024. Am I surprised that this is a wrap? No, because when Shannon skated, we talked about it right here. And we discussed even then, what are the options for Skip Bayless? What are the options for Fox Sports if they're trying to restore the energy, restore and recapture and rebrand on the fly? And we talked about it. Like I basically said, look, the easiest thing to do is to copy what First Take is doing. And that's exactly what they did. Stephen A. did a rebrand on the fly in terms of once they got Max Kellerman up out of there, of, hey, I'm going to bring in an expert in every sport. And every time we talk about that sport, we're going to have that individual, expert, because it's hard to find someone who is a quote unquote expert or analyst in every single sport. Even though these guys portray themselves as such. Even though these guys portray themselves as such, and they oftentimes show us that they're not, they're billed as being experts in all sports. So it's much easier. Hey, we're talking football. Hey, go get Ryan Clark. Instead of me having to listen to Max Kellerman wax poetically about the New York Giants, let me just go get Ryan Clark, who could just get to the X's and O's and we could be done with the segment. Oh, we're talking basketball. Oh, let's go get JJ Redick. Let's go get all these guys. Let's go get Big Perk and have him come in and talk basketball instead of me having to listen to Max Kellerman use, 15 consonants in a word to describe how the Knicks played poorly last night. That's what you got in terms of, I'm just going to make this easier. I'm going to dumb down the content. I'm the guy. I don't need someone to share the spotlight with. I'm the guy. It revolves around me. That's what these shows have become. When you look at all these shows, even with these athlete pods, it's coming to the same thing. You find the one guy who's the main guy, and then you just surround them with ensembles. You even see it with McAfee. Like that's become, before the blueprint was, you have two guys. You have a loud talking personality and you pair them with a loud athlete and just let the fireworks ensue. Or you have the two, point A, point B kind of guys, the yin and the yang type of personalities, and let them clash. And then that would be the show. And that's what the hot take era has become, where you find one guy, I say A is better. You find another guy, well, I think B is better. Boom, there's your show. There's your show. And you could run it into the ground for 20, 30 years. We have literally seen that across television and podcasting and streaming. That's the formula. Well, now it's shifting. Now it's personality ensemble based. Now it's just, you don't need two guys. You just need one guy. Get one guy and then have a team around that guy who can contribute, who can chime in, who can give the host a break when you're talking for, 15 minutes straight and you got nothing. You can throw it to the guys behind the glass or throw it to the homies on the couch and let them chime in or steer the conversation a different way. That is now the rinse and repeat formula. The landscape of the medium is changing. That's kind of my whole point in bringing up of how it shifted from the duo back and forth, let's argue, to one guy ensemble cast. The landscape is changing. So why stay at FS1? Why stay at a network that isn't hitting and isn't even really competing against a four-letter network? What cachet does it have? When you see the supporting cast that he has, which is a clear, watered-down, bootleg, Canal Street version of First Take, why even do it? Why continue to do it? You're getting 8 M's a year. You telling me you can't get minimum half of that independently? Like FanDuel was throwing bags around. They threw the bag to McAfee, 120 M's, and McAfee walked away from that to come to the four-letter network. I thought Unc was going to go take that bag, but he took the smaller bag from the four-letter network, but he still was able to build upon his cachet, and then he hit with the Cat Williams interview, and now he's out of here. And now the four-letter network has done a contract extension, so now he's really cashing out. Okay, so he may have turned down 120 or whatever was left of the 120 from FanDuel, but you would like to think between the YouTube and between the contract and the re-up of the contract with the four-letter network, he should be, if not close, real close. And if you could do it that way, where you're doing it independently and you're doing it on your own and you don't have any overseers, you don't have any bosses, you don't have anyone that could tell you what not to do, that is the cash in. That is truly cashing out. And I think that's what Skip is trying to do. You know, a lot of folks think Skip is just going to walk away. I really don't see the reason why Skip would walk away. I think there's still bread out there for him to get. That $8 million a year, he's probably not going to get that, right? He's probably not going to get that unless it's from a gambling, streaming type of company that's just willing to cash out and just throw bags around. Although I think that era is kind of over. Even with the athlete pods, that bread is kind of running dry now. I really feel like Skip is going to go along with the Colin Cowherd way of and Colin Cowherd, by the way, has got 1 year left on his deal. So we love how these guys talk about athletes and when they have contract years and et cetera, et cetera. Let's now start to talk about that when it comes to these hot takers. Colin Cowherd is in a contract year. Let's see the numbers he puts up. Let me see contract year, Colin Cowherd. Although you could argue he's already been cashed now because he saw this coming. He has seen this shift. He has seen this shift himself. And that's why he went and started the volume. And he's been able to cash out. He hit on the Draymond thing. He's got some other counterculture, second screen type of pods, and he's cashing in on the culture. Can Drip Bayless cash in and then ultimately cash out on the culture like Colin Cowherd? Are y'all going to allow Drip Bayless, who, you know, was able to have the take of LeBron's not better than Jordan? That was the take that sent him into the stratosphere. Is I'm going to find ways to tear down LeBron James at every moment. And then Nick Wright came around that and said, you know what? I'm going to be the opposite of that. I'm going to be the guy that tears down Michael Jordan every chance I get to prop up LeBron James. And what do you know? They both end up at Fox with big contracts. The game is not that hard. It's really, really not. So if you're Skip, why not cash out and go to independent venture, okay? As you see here, this article, I'm going to read it for the podcast audience, 3 different landing spots for Skip Bayless after leaving Undisputed. So you have the whole idea of, is he going to retire? I don't think he's going to retire. I don't think there's no way. He's too entrenched and he still has impact, right? His impact is nowhere near what it was when he was at the 4-letter network, right? But his impact is still there. I don't see himself walking away from that impact when he was so maniacal in building that impact and working hard to get that impact in the first place. I don't see him having the same type of temperament of just walking away. You see it here, independent media venture. This is ultimately where I think Skip Bayless ends up. Do the Colin Cowherd thing, you know, go get yourself a production company, go look for some young talent, hire them out, get a bag, give them a smaller bag, give them a portion, go leverage that to another parent company, maybe even Fox, and try to cash out that way. Because I believe the volume is still under Fox. So Colin Cowherd, even though he's on a contract year, and if I'm him, I'm walking away and pouring myself heavily into the volume and maybe take my show independently directly to my own company in the volume. But even if he decides to re-up with Fox, he knows he's getting that bread on the back end with the volume. Can Drip Bayless do a similar move? I think that's the only type of move, to be quite honest for you. If you're going to walk away, you're not going to walk away for another show at Fox. The four-letter network has already said vehemently they are not interested in bringing you back. What other linear broadcast network are you going to go to? You're not going to CBS. There's even less viewers over there. Where else are you going to go? You're not going to go to NBC, or at least I don't think you should. I don't think you should. If NBC is getting back into the game because they have the NBA package, and what better landing spot for a guy that is anti-LeBron than bringing in the NBC package, rebirthing it? Maybe they can't get Chuck in terms of, you know, the whole thing with the Inside TNT crew allegedly being in the mix of sliding over to NBC once that run is done at TNT. But even if that don't shake out, Drip Bayless running up there at 74, 75 years old, still riding on LeBron on NBC, that could be a thing. That could be a thing. But outside of that, I don't know why you would do the cable sports news network thing. I don't see a real avenue to do that. But this third one, the streaming, we mentioned the FanDuel piece earlier, but it's not just FanDuel, right? We got DraftKings, we got all these companies. Everyone and their mama starting a gambling company and trying to strike gold with the gambling bag. Would you subscribe to a service or pay for a service, a flat fee, or just consume content from a middling gambling company just because Skip Bayless is now over there giving out hot takes? The answer is a hard no for me. It's a hard no. But if you're telling me he's out here and he now can pick a true ensemble, see, what he had to figure out on the fly at FS1 was, okay, well, look, Shannon's gone, shit, who am I going to talk football with? Because again, these shows prioritize football over everything else. Okay? They require football minds to be able to have to talk basketball. That's how important football is to them. It's silly, and it gets exposed all the time when football players talk about basketball, but because football is so king, they'd rather invest heavily into having ex-football players year-round rather than finding guys that are good at what they talk about all year round. It's an easier investment to pay one guy to talk about everything as opposed to, I need a hockey guy, I need a football guy, I need a college basketball guy, I need a college football guy. When I could just have one football player where there goes NFL and college football right there, the top two sports allegedly. And then basketball, okay, then yeah, just, you know, be like Unc and, you know, put on a LeBron GOAT mask and we'll find a way to get through it. We'll just find a way to get through it, okay? Just, you know, those months, we'll talk about basketball 1 day or 2 days a week until we have to, right? Until after the Super Bowl. Then we'll look at NBA, right? That's a real thing, by the way. So if we're tailoring this whole thing of where should Skip Bayless go, if we're really trying to navigate what steps should be next, I've come to the realization that the sports media landscape is really, really tricking it off. The new media thing that we were told about, the new media thing that the habitual nut hitter Draymond Green and all these other athlete pods were coming in, we're going to shake up the industry. We're going to change the industry. We're about 4 years into this new media era. What's actually changed about media? I'll gladly take any and all comments. What has actually changed? And I'll even put a caveat. What has actually changed positively in this new media era? Because all I see new media doing is the same exact thing they were mad at old media for doing. You're bringing in athletes now that have biases, which they were always mad that these old journalists that never played or is past their prime and they're biased towards a certain era or a certain player or a certain team. And now you have new media walking in and they're doing the same exact thing where players are biased towards their teammates, towards their coaches, towards the guys they played against their rivals. Their era versus the new era. Their era versus a prior era. It's the same biases that they were mad, furious, hateful about old media about. So what exactly has changed? Let me know. If you're on YouTube, let me know in the comments. If you're on the pod, let me know on social media. What has changed with new media versus old media? So what has athlete pods have done as opposed to old school media, which is more so non-athlete content done? Like what is the difference? Old media, they would regale you stories of covering teams and being on team planes and getting tea from the locker room and all that type of stuff. Now we're getting athlete pods where they're telling us stories from the team plane and they're giving us stories from the locker room. Okay. You let me know if you think of anything else that's actually different. Am I mad that athletes are getting paid to do pods? No. I'm mad that they're not taking the platforms that they have earned and have been given, leveraging their power and influence to be given platforms, and they're doing the same shit that they railed against for all this time. Do some new content. Do some different content. Give me something so outside the box. Stop sitting down and interviewing your former teammate. Stop sitting down interviewing your former coach. Stop interviewing players where y'all have already talked behind the scenes about what you will and will not ask them. Because guess what? Old media used to do that too. Thank you for tapping into the content. If you've made it this far, leave me a $sign emoji in the comments to let me know that you've made it this far. But either way, YouTube seems to think you will like this video next. I'm a little bit more partial to this one, but I mean, either way, subscribe to the content right here and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.